Hi, my name is Rebecca Wells, and I am a midwife serving in the Las Vegas area. I began my apprenticeship in 2007 and began taking my own clients in 2010. I'm here today to talk to you as birthing families in the state about some history regarding midwifery in Nevada and the legal situation or status of midwives in Nevada. There is no law prohibiting the practice of midwifery in the state of Nevada. That's very important because in order for something to be illegal, there has to be a law making it illegal. And there isn't anything like that in the state of Nevada. Therefore, all midwives in the state of Nevada are legal. This means that as birthing families, you have the right to choose anyone, any midwife, to attend you when you're having your baby. Nevada law does mention midwives a couple of times in the revised statutes, and I will link them below. It's not anything that says what we can or can't do. It just has to do with the transmission of communicable diseases and filing birth certificates. Really simple, easy stuff. Midwives have been practicing peacefully and openly in the state for many, many decades, and you can talk to those midwives. You can find them. Ask them about what it's been like and why they've been able to practice without any legal trouble. In 1982, the Attorney General of the state of Nevada was asked his opinion on the legal status of midwives and if the State Board of Health had the ability to regulate them. He gave his opinion, and that's in writing. It's in PDF form, and I'll link to it also down below. You can read it for yourself. Pertinent information starts on page 16. He answered that midwives are not practicing medicine, that it's a different art from the practice of medicine, and that the State Board of Health had no legal standing to regulate them under the law. In the 1990s, there was a midwife who transported a baby to the hospital after a birth, and the hospital decided to bring charges against her. It wasn't the parents, but it was the hospital, and what they ended up charging her with was negligence. They did not charge her with the practice of medicine without a license, as they would have if she had been breaking the law. They instead charged her with negligence. Inevitably, the charges were dropped, and everybody involved in this situation were happy and healthy, and the parents were pleased with the care of their midwife. One of the reasons midwives have been able to practice legally and openly for so many years is because they have chosen to stay in our own lanes and only practice midwifery. All we do is take care of the mamas who want to stay home to deliver their babies in a normal physiological birth. We're trained in emergencies, and we're trained in how to identify when births may be falling outside the realm of just a normal physiological birth, and at that point we will take the mother so that she can receive medical care at one of the local hospitals. There's no basis for claiming that midwives are illegal in Nevada and need to be legalized. There is no need to legalize something that is already legal. Some midwives who practice at home do wish to do some things that may cross the line into the practice of medicine. They have received training for this and wish to practice those skills that they may have. In order to do this, they need to be licensed by the state, because once you're no longer practicing just normal physiological birth midwifery, the state has a right to license and regulate providers who wish to carry or administer medications and things like that. There is a path for this type of midwife already in the state without any change to the law. They're called the certified nurse midwives. They're nurses first, and then they go and get an additional degree, a master's degree in midwifery. They are licensed by the state, and they are regulated by the State Board of Nursing. Any midwife in the state of Nevada who wishes to follow this path and be licensed and regulated by the state as a medical provider can do so. There are many other midwives in the state of Nevada who wish to remain free from all government regulations. The reason is because if the state comes in and regulates midwives, as they do not currently do, it will encroach on the freedom of birthing families and will reduce access to care to mothers who wish to access a non-medical midwife provider. This happens because once the state issues a license, they also form a board, and that board lays out the practice guidelines or the scope of practice that the midwife must follow. You can look for yourself at nearby states or any states that license and regulate midwives and see what exactly that means. I am certain that there are many of you watching this video today who had a happy and safe home birth with your perfectly legal midwife in the state of Nevada, but would not be able to do so in many other states. This is because the scope of practice is often very narrow. For instance, midwives cannot attend births before 37 weeks or after 42 weeks. How many of you got to 42 weeks, didn't have a baby in your arms yet, and chose to continue waiting until your body went into labor naturally? If you were in a state where midwives are licensed and regulated, in most or many of those cases, your midwife would have been forced to transport you to the hospital and not care for you anymore. This would have meant that you either forced to go to the hospital and agree to an induction or cesarean that you may or may not have wished for, or you could choose to remain home perfectly legally and have your baby unassisted without a care provider, which is legal in every state and a perfectly acceptable way to have your baby if that's what you wish. But if you hired a midwife and been seeing her for 40-some weeks and you really wanted her to be at your birth, that's too bad. That's because the state has come in and said that is outside the midwife's scope and they can no longer care for you, which reduces your choices in your birth. In addition to limiting the choices of women just based on the number of weeks pregnant they are, many states also limit the practice of midwives in other ways, such as not being able to attend vaginal births after cesareans. That can be a big problem because sometimes it's difficult to find a hospital provider who will do a vaginal birth after cesarean, which would force more women into unnecessary cesareans. Also, variations of normal like breech babies or twins are also limited in states that license and regulate midwives. Again, these families have the choice of an unassisted birth, but they do not have the choice of a midwife-attended birth. I hope this helps you understand the legal status of midwives in Nevada. We are legal. There's no need to legalize us. We are perfectly legal and able to help women birth where, with whom, and when they wish to, so that they can have control over their body, their baby, and their birth.